Check, 1, 2.
Welcome. I had somebody say to me as I was in this room and as people were starting to filter in, he took a look around and he said, wow, this really feels like a coming home experience. Because we've been doing this for many years now, 16 years, and many of you have come. I'm actually really curious. Who has come? This is your first year. This is my first year. Okay, great. How about if you have come up to 5 years? Great. How about up to 10 years? Amazing. Who has come for 16 years? Look at that. My name is Doug Sason. I am the president of the board of the Arts and Humanities Council, which is why I get to speak with you today. I'm really excited to be here to welcome you to the 16th annual Island Treasure Awards. Back in 1999, some of the members of the Arts Council came together and they recognized that while we admire the members of our Bainbridge Island community who work in the arts and the humanities, we had no way to acknowledge or reward those who do truly exceptional work in their fields. So we set out trying to correct the situation. Our intent was to identify people whose body of work displays a unique voice and vision, and as well they have an ongoing commitment to their chosen field. Rather than focusing on a few who have already achieved national recognition, we really wanted to shine a light on people who were less known, but who were constantly inspiring their peers and who have offered the community at large a different way of seeing ourselves and the world around us. Now, by now, most of you who've been coming to the Island Treasure Award, you know the process that we use to select our Island Treasures. One of the primary principles is anonymity. We have a mantra. Does anybody know the mantra? No one knows. How did you know that? Wait a minute. Yeah, no one knows. And it's really kind of a unique way to approach identifying who we value in the community. And it applies to everybody who's involved in the process. From the 10 nominators who propose our candidates each year, to the 5 jurors who take those nominations and have really rich conversations, to then even the nominees themselves. They don't know that they've been nominated. We do this because we believe it is a way to help our awards process stay free from pressures and politics, and that it's allowed it to be an authentic representation of the community's voice. Since 1999, we've selected and honored 32 outstanding people in the arts and the humanities, all of whom met our criteria and received unanimous vote from the jury. A number of these treasures are with us tonight, and you can tell because the women are wearing crowns, and the men have silver lapel pins. So when you see those crowns and those lapel pins, you'll know, and you'll be able to match them to their photos on the walls too. It's really cool. But sadly, there are 2 of our treasures who are not here with us any longer. Bob McAllister from 2001, and Dr. Frank Kitamoto from 2002. Bob received his award for being an inspired actor, director, and teacher, and Frank for educating young and old alike in our community about the exclusion and imprisonment of Japanese Americans during World War II. I'd like to ask any members of their families who might be here with us tonight to stand up. And also, all of our island treasures, if you could also stand up, we'd like to give you a round of applause. Thank you. So tonight's extraordinary for a few reasons. One of them is that we are doing this for the first time in a new home here at BEMA. And I would like to, at this moment, express a special thank you to everybody who's been involved in hanging the show. I think it's the first time where we've been able to have this kind of representation about past island treasures with us in the room. How amazing that is. I hope you take time afterwards to look around at not only the pictures of the recipients, but also their work. For another reason why this is such an extraordinary night, we actually have 3 honorees tonight. And they not only received multiple nominations, they also were cited for both categories of the arts and the humanities. And most remarkably, the things that the nominators most wanted to tell us about them had striking similarities. All 3 of them moved to Bainbridge in 1977. And so if you do the math, it means that collectively they have contributed to the cultural life on Bainbridge Island for a combined total of 114 years. That's how it makes you feel. Vibrant, beautiful. It's amazing. Wonderful. Each nominee clearly described not only each of our honorees tonight as brilliant practitioners in his or her art, but also as gifted and committed as teachers in the community. And above all, according to their collective 9 nominators, they each offer us a master class in building community. And now one of the awards. So as has been our tradition for the last 15 of the 16 years that we've been doing this, we have the previous island treasurer come up to make the awards. And last year, John Wilson received the Island Treasure Award for his work as a poet, as well as an advocate of literature. And tonight, he will present the award in both art and humanities for Art GRICE. John?
Thank you, Doug. Thanks to Art GRICE's generosity toward a wide range of regional artists, I have enjoyed many gratifying conversations with participants at art studio, gallery openings, and other events that art has brought together. As a poet having a long-standing feeling of kinship with the visual arts, I'm greatly pleased and honored to present the statement by the nomination panel for Art GRICE's Island Treasure Award. It is as follows. Ask Art GRICE to talk about himself, his childhood, and you're likely to hear one word come up a lot: restless. According to Art, restlessness seems to have been a family trait. Art was born in Massachusetts and spent the first 10 years of his life there with his then 3 siblings. It was restlessness that inspired their parents suddenly to pack the family up and move out to the West Coast, a place they knew only from television. Art's father had been thinking about going to Oregon, which he remembered fondly from his days in the Civilian Conservation Corps. But when they arrived in Walnut Creek, California, his dad got a job, so that's where they stayed. Art's biggest enemy was always boredom. No big surprise for a restless soul. But as a kid, he discovered that at least he could draw during church services, and that at least in school there was one teacher who supported and encouraged his artistic talent. In 1964, the Vietnam War was in full swing, and Art was drafted into the Army. He went to San Francisco to learn electronics and radar, and then to Alaska to work as a battalion artist, drawing charts. After leaving the service, he moved back to San Francisco, working as a technical illustrator and photographer for Frightened Corporation, until his firm wanted him to be a manager instead of a creator, and he quit. In 1971, Art and his then wife Emily moved to Vancouver, BC, and together with another couple opened Mind's Eye Gallery, one of the first photography galleries on the West Coast. When he was not running the gallery, he was experimenting with 3D photography, thanks to a Canada Council exploration grant. 2 years later, Art and some friends created a not-for-profit educational organization called VIEW, Vancouver Image Exploration Workshops, offering workshops and lectures in art photography. One evening, Art was talking with his friends about how great it would be to have a chance to speak with some of the most noted photographers of the day, an opportunity to learn from the best. Suddenly he thought, well, why not? Why not call up these renowned artists and invite them to Vancouver to give a talk? And if they could raise some money, they would even be able to offer the speakers a stipend. The directors of VIEW approached the British Columbia Council for the Arts with their proposal and walked away with a $5,000 grant to use as seed money. This launched the Great Photographers Lecture Series that offered talks by distinguished photographers, first in Vancouver and later in Seattle as well. Meanwhile, Art and Emily had become enamored with Bainbridge, and in the late 70s, they left Vancouver to build a home on the island. Art decided he would now work as a general contractor and converted an old barn into a cabinet shop in which he could build furniture and boats. 15 years later, it was this cabinet shop that Art transformed into his studio, and then into Art's Studio Gallery. For 12 years, this alternate gallery offered exhibitions of work by artists in a host of diverse media. Art received 5 nominations for tonight's award, and as Doug mentioned, they were for excellence in both the arts and the humanities. He was nominated as a highly skilled fine arts photographer who has enjoyed numerous exhibitions in the US and Canada. He is equally known for his expertise in photographing architecture and artwork. One nominator wrote, "Art's personal work shows outstanding insight into both our natural world and the human condition. His commercial architectural photography of buildings and sculptures is in national demand by many renowned architects. His photographs have been published in books and magazines in the US, Canada, and Europe." Of equal importance to the Island Treasure panel, however, is Art's work in the humanities. He has been a teacher throughout his whole life, and some of the time, he has even been paid for it. As a photography educator, he led classes and workshops at University of British Columbia, University of Saskatchewan, Vancouver School of Art, and Northwest College of Art, among others. Outside the classroom, he still acts as a teacher and mentor, sharing his time, talent, experience, and expertise in a myriad of ways. As another nominator writes, Art served as art editor for Exhibition magazine for 12 years. He was instrumental in starting the gallery at BPA and was part of the core group that began the annual studio tour. He was the co-producer of Connections, a series of digital art seminars offered in 1995 and 1996. He introduced discussion groups for local artists, dealing with all aspects of being an artist, from issues such as intellectual property and philosophy, to pragmatic considerations, including finance and marketing. Art seems always to be at work, deeply involved in one project, investigating another. Restless. A number of people throughout history have described themselves as restless. Among them are figures as disparate as Buffalo Bill, Mikhail Baryshnikov, and Julia Child. According to Thomas Edison, restlessness is the first necessity of progress, because if someone is content with everything the way it is, that person is never going to try to change anything or explore alternate possibilities. And he will never invent anything new. Let us be grateful that we have among us this restless soul who has boundless curiosity and an eagerness to share, who is willing to roll up his sleeves and try out new things and then report back to us what works. Art has been described as an inspired man, but in his world, inspiration wears overalls, and it looks a lot like hard work. Now, let's look at the man himself in a short film made by Steve Stoley last December.
I was born in Massachusetts in 1942. It's a long time ago. I still don't appreciate how long ago that was, because time warps as you get older. But when I was 10, my parents decided in the end of 51 to pack us up. They sold a house they built and put all the money in one check, which we got to hold and look at, a $10,000 check. It was the most money we could ever imagine. And anyway, they bought a Woody, the 1950, I think it was a 50 Woody Ford station wagon, and a Spartan trailer, 27-foot trailer. Put everything in it, including 4 kids at that time. And we headed west, and we had no idea what the West was, except from what we'd seen on television. And we started out, and there's a lot of stories there, but basically we made it to California, and Dad was thinking of going to Oregon, but we wound up staying in California because there was work there. I remember my mother becoming religious at the time. She was her sister had talked her into going to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and after a while she embraced it more. and tried to encourage us kids, and my dad, who would not buy into it, but was supportive, all of us to go to church with her, and we did, and it was a pretty boring experience most of the time. And I started in church actually drawing on the side of the church, anything that had any open space on it. I started drawing pictures, and then my mother started saving those, and I remember looking back, and I still have some, and that's when I sort of realized that I could actually render and do some drawing. I think that's when I realized that I actually had a skill to do something. And then in 4th grade, I had a teacher who was really exceptional. She didn't teach me a lot of other things, but she taught me one thing, that I could do things, and I could do some things well. It was really a great realization. And so from there, I think I was sort of locked into the path of being able to participate in the art world, although I did a lot of other things. And we were really restless kids. My older brother and I would play and explore constantly, and we did it physically. We didn't sit and read too much except for what we needed to know to learn how to make gunpowder or to melt lead on my mother's stove in the kitchen and she would let us. My mother was actually one of the kids. She loved the process of having kids and rearing kids and doing things together, and we did a lot. And we got her in trouble sometimes, like when the lead blew up from pouring it into a wet mold.
Just look at this mess!
We had to scrape it off the ceiling before Dad got home and found out what we had done. When I was a teenager, I was pretty restless, and school, day-to-day school and on to college was really tough for me. And I wound up going to junior college and learning about some of the classics and about the humanities. Anyway, I've been able to spend the rest of my life looking into those things. So I got drafted into the Army during the Vietnam War, and I didn't want to kill anybody. So I went in, I got the draft notice and went down to the draft board, and I said, I don't want to kill anybody, but I'm glad to give you some time. I wound up being in the artillery and working in radar and going to electronics school in San Francisco, and they said you'd go from there for half your hitch, and then for the rest of it you'd go to either Alaska or to Germany. And so I wound up in Alaska. So then I got out of the service and found a job as an illustrator for a company, Frieden, a corporation that made adding machines. And after about 6 months or so, I found a camera in a closet, and I said, why can't we just photograph these things rather than have to draw exploded isometric views of these machines, which we'd spend a week doing, a drawing like those in ink so they could be photographed. So I started doing that and got myself in this little studio incorporated into the photo lab, which was a great opportunity for learning, because we did everything in the photo lab, from make prototype circuit boards from positives, and we made printing plates, we made movies, we did lots of graphic arts work, and besides documenting processes and working on books and stuff. So it was great. But then the next thing that happened was that they wanted to put me into management. That was sort of the next step. You worked for a year or 2 years or 3 years as a technician, and then the next step was to sit in the desk and run the operation. And I didn't think that was going to be for me. So I quit. I think that was 1970, 71, and I have worked for myself ever since. So in 71, moved to Vancouver, lived there for 7 years and opened a gallery, a photography gallery, and one of the first photography galleries on the West Coast. And I realized shortly that I hated retail life, sitting there. And then I started with some friends an organization called Vancouver Image Exploration Workshops, and we got some grants to do some projects, did shows, and got sort of moved more into the art world, or art photography world. But I was starting to do commercial photography at the time and just kind of learning on my own how to do things. But the most fun thing we did with View was that we decided, we were sitting around one evening drinking beer, I guess, and talking about photography and photographers, and thought, why wouldn't it be wonderful to talk to Cartier-Bresson or you know, W. Gene Smith or Ralph Gibson or some of the people that we thought were just doing hot work at the time. And I think I remember saying, let's just call them up and see if we can get them out. So we did. We made a few phone calls and realized that, well, we could pay these guys and they'd come. Guys and some women, Judy Dater. Anyway, we went with an idea. We developed the idea a little bit and decided we'd do some workshops and a lecture, a big lecture, and we'd charge for them. And we thought we could break even or make a little money doing it. So we went to the, it wasn't the Canada Council for the Arts, it was the British Columbia Council for the Arts, or the big arts organization in British Columbia. So we went over to Victoria. I was the president of View, and Jerry was this secretary, and we went over and we presented our idea to this panel in this big room at the Empress Hotel. And they gave us a check for like $5,000 for seed money. This is back in 1972 or something. And we started off doing it. We did this series for 2 or 3 years. And the Henry Gallery here in Seattle picked it up. So we would do the series in Vancouver, and then we'd bring them down, whoever the lecturer was, we'd bring them down to Seattle. And it was great fun. We met really interesting people. While I was in Canada, I lived there for 7 years, I worked really hard doing photography, commercial photography, and I began teaching at the University of British Columbia as a guest lecturer and as doing adult education, and taught at the art school and did projects across Canada. So it was a great experience relative to the art world. But we were restless, lived in the city up there, and we're starting to look for some land or something close to the city of Vancouver, and it was really difficult to find anything that was affordable. And we were on vacation down on Bainbridge Island in Seattle, because we came down to Seattle a lot, and we were still American citizens. So we ran into Bainbridge and really liked it, and decided we were going to just settle here. And we did. We just bought a few acres of land here and built a house. And then I decided I really wanted to build furniture, make some furniture. So I opened up a cabinet shop and had 2 or 3 people working for me. And the cabinet shop actually was one of the beginnings of the gallery that eventually wound up being in the same building. I sort of worked the regular cabinet shop for, it was almost 15 years, and built a lot of furniture. In fact, the last job we did in the shop before I left there was to build the front doors for Bill Gates' house. And but we did a lot of fun things, but we also did a lot of boring things. Casework, shelves, sprayed a lot of lacquer, which we probably shouldn't have done. I got back into photography by starting to do architectural work. Got hooked up with Jim Cutler, who really gave me a start doing that, and then I worked for a lot of other architects too. But I moved out of the cabinet work, and I remodeled it with what money we had and friends, and we started having a few shows. And they were shows mostly for us and for our friends, because we were out in the woods. Even some of the people that worked in the cabinet shop who had talked about doing artwork or had gone to art school but never could get started doing anything else wound up having shows at the gallery there later on. And for me, it was like this wonderful circle of friends that we were doing things, and we were doing them for the sake of doing them, not for the sake of making a living or making money off of it. It wasn't part of the issue. I'm semi-retired now. Getting back to your work, it's difficult to turn and go back to all of the interesting strains of work you were doing before, because life is different, and you change in your ideas, and you learn more, fortunately, if you can remember it. But one of the things I want to explore more, which is very interesting to me, is sort of the dangers of beauty. I find that one of the things that I do automatically is always turn to beauty, what we conceive as beauty. We even define it very carefully. And it always takes us to the same place that we've been before. It's wonderful to appreciate, wonderful to look at things that are, quote, beautiful, but they are defined, and we always need to go to the edge of that and find out what else, where it can take us. If you learn how to define beauty and you learn how to make beautiful things, then you're a bit stuck because you're not inventing anymore. So one of the things I would like to do is explore this idea of how beauty can misinform us, how it can take us on a short ride and maybe not very far. So one of the things I would like to do is sort of explore that contradiction between beauty in art and to be an inventor.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bainbridge Arts and Humanities Council is pleased to present the Island Treasure Award to Art GRICE.
You had the good sense to cut out the things that were redundant. Thank you. Anyway, it's great to see everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. And congratulations, Diane and Greg, also. I had a little talk figured out a little bit, and then the dog ate notes. There were some pieces left. And so, first of all, thank you. Thank you, John. And it's a great honor. I don't quite know what it means. It's a bit melancholy in a way. You have to look back on all of these things you've been doing. It makes you feel a little older. And yeah. But anyway, I feel like I've done some interesting and things that were worthwhile. And that's really great. I feel good about that. And I'm thankful for being recognized for it. I've never been a loner in things that I've done in my life. I always have loved friends and loved doing things with friends. So all of my friends really should be standing up here with me to get this, because I wrote in a lot of people over the years. And I think that's just basically because I always have felt that if you can accomplish anything at all, you need to take along the people who help you do it. You need to lift them along and share it with them. And often that's them, the workers, your family, your community. And if you don't do that, it all goes away. So you need to take your friends with you. I was trying to figure out what to wear, and I went into Nordstrom's and they fixed me up. Give me your credit card. But I was looking through some little buttons I had. I collected a few buttons, and they were like bumper stickers, you know. It said, some of them said, art saves lives. And art won't hurt you. One of my favorites is art wrecks everything. But, you know, in a way, I think the most important one is that art is everything. And it occurs to me often that no matter what we do, it's art. You know, even if we don't see ourselves as artists, we leave our art, our public art, our homes are art, our gardens are our art. Everything is art. It's all our public art. Our communities, our developments, our shopping centers are somebody's art, somebody's public art. And it's broader than that, I think. Some of our art is social responsibility, and maybe even global warming. Anyway, I want to thank you a lot for this. I want to thank the committee, the Island Treasure Committee, and the Arts and Humanities, the museum, and Greg, and Cynthia, and everybody I'm forgetting. I want to thank all my friends, and I see a lot of them out there who have been so helpful and important all of these years, and I am nervous, so it's hard for me to remember the names, but I see your faces, and I wish you were up here with me. I want to thank my family, my children, Rena and Kyle, for their love and support, and my wife, Suzanne, and her family for their love and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second award tonight is going to be presented by Jane Gettberg, who was honored last year for her achievements as a brilliant fiber artist and the creator of the Camp Siberia Cottage program. Janie will present the award to DIANE Bonciolini and Greg Mesmer, who together are Mesolini class for their work as glass artists, creators of public art, and teachers of both craft and community.
It is such an honor tonight to have the opportunity to introduce my wonderful friends, Greg and Diane, who are Island Treasures tonight. So happy for you. There's an old African proverb: if you want to travel fast, travel alone. If you want to travel far, travel together. Greg Mesmer and Diane Bonciolini have certainly traveled a long way since they met in 1974. Maybe not so far geographically, but certainly artistically and professionally. However, back then it took them a whole year to decide that they would be making that journey together. Greg had graduated from the University of Washington and had recently fallen in love with the process of cutting glass that he learned from his brother. Diane, whose college major had been clothing design, was casting about for something to focus on that might be more lasting and significant for her. She also had recently become enamored of glass. Both of them were sure that they wanted to work with their hands. Glass was becoming a major art form in Seattle at that time. Not yet blowing glass. Pilchuck was still only a summer workshop, but making stained glass, windows, and lampworking were already major forms of art. Within a year, there would be almost 100 glass artists listed in the Seattle Yellow Pages. Remember the Yellow Pages? In 1977, Diane and Greg moved to Bainbridge Island to develop their glass business, now to be called Mesolini, a creative blending of their names. They wanted to discover a unique look for their work, something that would set them apart from everyone else in the glass field and establish their professional identity. They began raising their family while engaged in this process, and their line of functional dishware developed in somewhat Darwinian fashion. Did one of their plates still look good after running it through the dishwasher 40 times? Great, it must be dishwasher safe. Did it survive repeatedly dropping on from a toddler's high chair? Excellent. It was approved for family use. When in 1984 they entered their pieces in the Bellevue Art Fair, they didn't realize, at first, that they were offering to the public a whole line of functional dishware that was both beautiful and affordable, as well as family tested. Some of their signature pieces were the result of a happy accident. Their trademark live edge first appeared when Diane made a plate from a sheet of glass with an irregular edge. It was their inherent design sense that kept them from fixing it. Greg and Diane received 4 nominations for this award tonight. Each of the nominators wrote about their contributions to public art that enliven our community and signals to visitors in our community the love of the arts. From their installation called Island Life at Waypoint Park that welcomes the ferry travelers, to the map of Bainbridge at Rotary Centennial Park at the north end, and from the beach quilt at the corner of Madison and Winslow Way, to their installation of tiles in the library, Mesolini welcomes ideas from the community and incorporates into their art donated materials like beach glass and fan objects. Even more significant, wrote all 4 nominators, is the work Mesolini has done in the schools, inspiring the children's creativity and teaching them to master basic skills. Of particular note is the glass tiled mural created in 2011 at Ordway in memory of 3rd grade teacher Susie Peters. Diane and Greg designed and built this mural with the intention of reflecting Susie's love of the natural world, and they had 400 school children as their collaborators. Another mural that drew special attention in the nominations was an earlier outdoor installation at Ordway that incorporated drawings and sketches from 4th graders. And each of the nominators cited the inspiring work Mesolini did with the Bainbridge Special Needs Foundation, helping their clients create playful self-portraits of fused glass that went for a special exhibit at the Seattle Art Museum. Diane and Greg both live at the very hub of our arts community. As one nominator wrote, in addition to their own creative work, they have impacted the island's cultural community through their support of other island artists, helping them to establish their work, as well as to interact with islanders and visitors alike. They were founding members of the Bainbridge Island Studio Tour, now in its 31st year, and each year they opened their studio to provide a marketplace for other artists. In 2013, they started the Working Studio Group, and most recently they have been working as part of the core group for the newly founded Bainbridge Artisans Resource Network, BONCIOLINI, which offers classes and studio space for islanders. And in this artisan-run organization, Diane serves as a coordinator for class. Even in their own personal creative artwork, they often partner with other people in different crafts, and that frequently leads them to develop new techniques and skills, as well as to expand their vocabulary in class. And I can tell you that there are many women around the island who are thrilled that Diane now is speaking fluent George. Some might say that Greg and Diane have turned glass into a team sport. So, if you want to travel fast, travel alone. But if you want to travel far, travel together. Greg and Diane clearly made their choice a long time ago. Personally and professionally, they have traveled together for almost 40 years. Sometimes the word together refers to a few friends, or a group of 20. Sometimes to a school grade of 400, and sometimes to a community of 22,000. In any case, it always means the two of them. Now, here are, now here they are last December in a Steve Silly short film together.
Well, we came to the island in 1977, and that's after we'd worked for a couple of years at a stained glass studio in Seattle. So we knew working together that there was a possibility of a future, but when we moved to Bainbridge, there was really no second thoughts about what we wanted to do, and that was to pursue glass art and whatever that necessarily meant. And then Diane had worked with the Park District doing teaching stained glass classes. So she knew some people on the island, and by coming to the island, I was overwhelmed by such beautiful country, so close to the city, and yet, you know, here you are in the countryside. And the people we met along the way instantly were just really warm and really made it comforting. And there was, I mean, to sit here now and look back on that, some really special times, special people to get you to where you're at now.
I hired out at the studio because I had just lost funding. I was in a state-run program that lost its funding in the 70s and had some windows to repair, and so I went around looking for a place to repair them, and ran into the studio in Ballard, and the guys there were going, well, you know, we got all these tables and we're not very busy, so if you want, you can just repair them yourself, because it's not, you know, you can do it. And just don't ask too many questions, you know, because everything was kind of secretive, don't say anything. And so I did, and then they lost their fabricator, and so it hired me on as a fabricator in the afternoons, and you worked in the morning. And so we didn't meet for a while, a few months, and then we met and worked together for quite a few months, and then we decided to start our own studio. So we left that particular studio and went separately. Greg in Wallingford and I was on Beacon Hill for about a year, and then we decided to move to Bainbridge and had it, like Greg said, we met some folks, or I knew some folks that had a place that we could rent, and so we started, and that's when we started Mesolini, which was 1977. Yeah, Bainbridge just took us in. It was, I don't know how it started particularly, but you know, an intelligent community, very interested in the arts, very supportive. And I guess it was the Polly Dennis Gallery, which was where Church Mouse is now, and run by Dorothy. She was the main person, and I think Ethy was her assistant. And they had a competition, and the awards were Best Island Artist and Best of Show. And so we decided we would enter 2 pieces of stained glass at the time, because that's what we were doing, and they both won. Each won a prize. And it was like, oh, okay. It was like a shock, and it was so complimentary. And then I think from there things happened and just started.
Word of mouth was huge back then, though. It was interesting. You didn't have to advertise.
Yeah.
If you had, just before that, that was just a year after we moved here, but in the process, just meeting one client, doing one piece, and then that someone saw it, and then they came, and it was just a domino effect, if you will. But yeah, the early award scenario was like, well, this is home.
And
this is going to work.
We have one friend who is past, well, they both are past now, but, I would be frustrated at different times in working, and, I had babies, I had a husband, I had a business. Nothing was where I wanted it to be. I didn't feel I was a good enough mother, didn't feel I was a good enough wife, wasn't a good enough artist. It's like, what's going on? And she would always come in, especially when the kids were young, would just come and say, it's your turn to be a mother right now, family is what you're all about right now. And your art will come.
I was born in Eastern Washington and came over here in 1973 to go to school at the University of Washington. The art in Spokane wasn't necessarily really out. There wasn't really anything unique or what have you. It was more historical art that you were into, so that's how we would go to museums and see that kind of a deal. I worked a lot with my hands though. With my father, I did model airplanes and models in general. So I think that got the feeling of I like working with my hands. Came over to the University of Washington, and at the time, my brother had the glass studio in Ballard. And it was the beginning of the movement in Seattle. Quite a few recognizable people would swing by their studio in Ballard, and now they're world renowned. So it was real fun to be that part of growth of glass in Seattle in the mid-70s, much like being part of the growth of the art world on Bainbridge the last 35 years. It's just, I look back and you're just a participant in something that played out. You had no idea what was going on. What script? I missed that one.
So I was born in Tacoma, Washington, and I was one of the ADHD kids that would always look out the window, but was very shy, still can be, and so nothing really hit until my mom got me into sewing, and I started making my own clothing, and she was wonderful at supporting all of us kids, or I have 3 siblings, of keeping us involved with something that involved our hands. I mean, so sewing was my thing. And I went and, actually went to college to go in design, clothing design, which was the turbulent 70s, and that lasted about the first quarter. I came from the point of, what is this offering to society? Where now I know what it offers society and how important it is. But then I was like, I need, social justice was pretty important, and so that's where I spent and directed my energies. And then it was through a series of programs. I mean, I worked at the Pretty Treatment Center for a few months, and it was like, boy, this isn't where I want to be. This is a little confining. This is not where my mind and creativeness needs to be. So that's when I started on the road with the stained glass window, looking for a place to get it fixed. It was a piece that was given to me, and that, again, being smitten with glass, led me to where we are, and working with my hands. That's where I'm happiest. Okay, the thing that gives me the most pleasure is working with young children and just seeing how creative they are and how unobstructed they are in their thoughts when they're given a medium. And glass is not something that always is in the schools. It's in the schools a lot more. But we've had some wonderful opportunities to go into schools and not just work on little projects, but do a number of murals. And that allows us to be with the children longer than a few hours, but maybe some consecutive days. and then allows them to get to know you, understand what an artist is, and that it's a possibility for them if they want, and that everybody's an artist, and not to come from the point where you're not good enough. You know, everybody has something to offer, and then besides that, the opportunities that my clients give us to be giving us a little more freedom in what they would like to see. Maybe they have the space that's constricted and a possible idea, but allowing us to put our designs and ideas on paper without a lot of input, some input, but not a lot. So that's very satisfying when you come up with that.
I think what's very satisfying are the public art pieces that we do have out. We're reminded constantly of folks who are around the island that have seen things and all, and for us it's just humbling to be walking around and see people looking at your work and taking an eyeball and microscopically checking it out or whatever. And we do have little meanings in everything that we do. And that's been the last 13, 14 years, I believe, that we've really done those.
14.
It's really rewarding to run into educators that you've worked with in the past, and they respond to you by how much of that art piece still means to them. That is always ever rewarding for us.
I think we probably see things maybe slightly differently, but I see, when I think of where, I guess I think a little more personally within, in terms of where my art is going, what I'm doing. Windows and fused pieces are kind of how people, and slump pieces are how people know us now, but I'm having fun learning about jewelry, learning torch work, which is can be more sculptural. I like being able to do, and even though we've never done it before, like, we can do it. We can figure it out, we can figure out how to do something, and that's exciting, and who knows what it might be, but I guess there's no end. There's just not enough time. That's what we're realizing now. There's not enough time.
We realize that it's actually less time to go than the ideas that you've have in your head that have been kicking around for decades. Now it's probably time to get those out there and get doing them, But, our clientele has almost dictated our path in the past too. Someone will come with an idea and will implement it or execute it. That's really a fun thing to do. That goes with young people today. I try to have them focus on something that they have a good passion for and stick with it and give it time. Don't do what we do and go like a bee from flower to flower because you're thinking that this just might be the way that we do it. But yet we've grown through all those different stops and bumps and goes, different techniques, move into different arenas that we can fulfill for projects. So all of that is relative, in one way or another. I've always had a saying about feather in the headdress because that's kind of like your life, the headdress as you die. Well, all these projects, all the things that we've done are feathers in our headdress. And oh, by the way, this is the best feather, biggest, brightest feather we've got. Thank you very much.
So, the Bainbridge Island Arts and Humanities Council is delighted to present Greg and Diane with the 2015 Island Treasure Award.
We've got a couple short little statements, but thank you guys. It's wonderful to see everybody here. Everybody needs a lot, and I hope I can get through this. Just being a little bit emotional. As many of you know, art enriches the world. We are all artists, every one of us, and creativity is in all of us. If we look hard enough, it's there. With each project, from our boys Gus and Zach's preschool days to the recent Stevens House self-portraits, Greg and I have had to grow, learn, and stretch. The result is our life is enriched and full. Each project we created became a marker in our career, and many of you have been part of it and part of the journey. You have been patient with us, you have encouraged us, and you have challenged us all along the way. We have had nearly 2.5 months to process what this award means to us. We've been interviewed, we've been photographed and written about, but when going through our collection of old photos, it hit us. 38 years is a long time. Especially when you still think in your head that you're in your 20s. We were fortunate to have listened to our hearts and to have moved to the island when we were young. Now, years later, we find that we have a history and a treasure trove of projects that warm our hearts. Greg and I are children of mothers who instilled in us the importance of giving back to your community. That is what this award is all about. We don't have the words to adequately express our appreciation and thanks, but from the bottom of our heart, we do appreciate and thank you.
I would like to add, we'd like to congratulate our fellow Treasure Award winner, Art GRICE, for his newest contributions to our community. We would like to thank Cynthia for establishing an event to celebrate the arts and humanities on the island. She is the beacon of our community. Thanks to the committee and Bainbridge Arts and Humanities for considering us. We graciously accept this award and are humbled to be included with past recipients. We are grateful to have found a community with a strong art background that embraced us from the very beginning. We are indebted to local business owners and fellow artisans that have shown their support and trust in us through the years. We are more than happy to reciprocate in kind. As we all know, family and friends are the fortunes of life. We are proud to call Bainbridge Island our home. We would like to thank my mother-in-law, Adele, who's shown us the courage, strength, and resilience to live life to the fullest. We would like to thank my brother, Richard, and his late wife, Karen, for introducing us to each other, giving us the start, and have been instrumental in our career. Thank you to our 2 boys. You are the apple of our eye. As any parent knows, nothing compares. And to Diane, I cannot believe my fortune to have shared this life with someone so caring, kind, and compassionate. Your beauty is a blessing, and I'm eternally grateful. I love you.
That was beautiful. John, thank you for your introduction to art, and thank you for all you've done. Janie, thank you for your introduction, Diane and Greg. Thank you all for joining us tonight to make this an evening that is really special to share with friends and a growing family here on Bainbridge that really values the arts. I don't know a better way to show that than this. Please take time to notice these walls and the beauty that the museum has given us by honoring all past and present island treasures. And if you've got a little hungry, there's a delicious buffet served by Simply Bainbridge waiting for us downstairs. So take part in that. And also look around, enjoy all the island treasures that are in the room, and we will see you again next year. Thank you.